So I mentioned previously that one of, if not, if I was a one issue voter for President of the United States, it would be for the Supreme Court. That the Supreme Court has the longest lasting effects. Now, let me be clear, that should not be the reason we need to vote for a president. That should not be a leading issue for us, but it's become it. The court has become wildly powerful. And that happened very early on in the history of the court. It did not take very long after the founding of the country for the court to begin to overstep its bounds. Honestly, that's what I think is in many ways they've wildly overstepped their bounds. I'll give you a recent example in the Obamacare. When Obamacare first went to the Supreme Court, you had the Supreme Court decide that Obamacare was legal because the penalties in Obamacare weren't penalties, they were a tax. Both sides of the issue had gone to the Supreme Court and had specifically argued it was not a tax. When both sides, okay, so who's arguing it there? Oh, it's the legislatures of both sides. So you have the legislative branches sending their representatives over to the Supreme Court to argue that the people who wrote it, both sides wrote it not to be a tax. And yet somehow the Supreme Court, in evaluating it, decided it was okay because it was a tax. They're supposed to be evaluating the law on the basis of whether or not it's constitutional. So something either disagrees with the law and the intent of the law, or it disagrees with the Constitution. In this case, they just wrote new stuff. It doesn't say it's a tax. Both sides who are involved in creating it said it's not a tax, and to keep it in place, the Supreme Court decides it is a tax. That's crap. And no, I'm not a legal scholar. I don't care. Words mean stuff. It's unbelievable to me, and to me that massively overstepped what the Supreme Court was meant to do. They can't pick like that, and they shouldn't be. But they are, and they have been for a long time. One of the primary issues with the court has been that the members of the court are chosen by a president. The president chooses them, and then the Senate advises and consents, which has been primarily consent throughout all history. They have occasionally said no, but more often than not, they pass through whoever the president is. And that idea was really good when they originally wrote the Constitution, because when they were originally putting all of this together, they were seeing the presidency in a way that it hasn't been. And that's because they had already knew who the president was going to be. And that was this George Washington guy. And while he doesn't get the credibility today anymore because we are holding him to a standard that his own time didn't hold him to, he was a truly extraordinary human being. He's the only president we've ever had who did not want to be president. He agreed to be president. It was pushed on him. His country asked him to serve in this way. And because of that, he did things like choose people for the Supreme Court in a way nobody else has, because he was always looking for what was best for the country. And he honestly said, one of the quotes from him is that anybody who wants the job is unqualified to have it. And so he was really put out by the fact that he was surrounded by people who wanted the job really bad. Adams and Jefferson desperately wanted the job. Like, come to blows, hate each other over the fact that they wanted to be president so bad. And Thomas Jefferson's one of my true heroes, but he wanted to be president really, really bad. And that caused the country to really, really divide, because we had this party system rise up, and who was going to put forward their person, and you get the whole president as we understand it today. Because of that, because we choose a president based upon this very divided thing, when the president picks a Supreme Court justice, both the president is likely to have come from a much farther out on the perspective than George Washington. George Washington was about America, period. He had his detractors, but he cared about the country more than anything else, more than he would have cared about party. But because of the way we chose to pick a president from very early on, it became this party thing. And so what you ended up doing is each party picked people who were very of what they believed, which meant that their belief, they were driven by the things that mattered to the party. And because of who they are then, when it comes their time to pick somebody for the Supreme Court, they care a lot that the Supreme Court person is going to judge cases the way they believe the Supreme Court should judge them. Okay? Because of that, the court ever since has been divided. The court is always some balance based upon the parties who have produced the presidents who then produce the Supreme Court justices. Say, well, could they be done better? I would love for there to be a way for it to be done better, because I think it should not be political. I think if the law says something and the Constitution says something, then let's put it this way. We don't get to see the deliberations in the Supreme Court. It's completely hidden to us. And I haven't done enough study to know whether or not I like that or not. It allows them to speak freely and all those sorts of things. But because of that, there's something that I don't understand, that just doesn't compute inside my head, that I'd like to see, which is I would think most cases that go to the Supreme Court would be unanimous decisions. If the law says something, it says it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, I have my own opinions as to why that's the case. I think some of the liberal justices don't give a rat's rear end what the law says or the Constitution says. Honestly, I could go down through their rulings and show that it doesn't matter. They found rights that aren't there. They find laws that aren't there. And one of the things that has separated out the Supreme Court justices from conservatives is that they have an originalist idea of the text. The words mean what they say. Okay? And yes, I think that's what it was meant to be. If the basics of that is, should it be this living Constitution? So the way we look at the Constitution, should we look at it differently than they did 200 years ago? No, we shouldn't. Why? Because if you don't like what the Constitution says, we were given a way to fix that. You change it. We've done it a whole pile of times. If you don't like it, go in and change it. Don't massage the words into something other than what they are. Because as soon as you start doing that, they mean nothing. Okay? But our current situation means that there is not a better way of doing it, so we have a divided court. And that divide in the court means that things are going to go the way you like or the way you don't like. That's part of how it is, until what the Democrats are threatening right now. And they're threatening it for the second time in 100 years. And that is, we are watching a Supreme Court nomination right now. And there are Democrats saying stuff as stupid as, it's unconstitutional what's going on right now. That's absurd. When you're doing something exactly as the Constitution says, it can't, by definition, be unconstitutional. The Constitution says that when we elect a president, they're elected for 4 years. A president of the United States, gets to, when there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court, they get to nominate somebody, and the Senate will confirm them or not. You say, oh, but, right before, we had to wait, in 2016, we had to wait for the next election and all of that. And the Republicans said, no, they didn't. What they did was they said, we're not going to vote on your guy. Why? Because we're not of your party. And if we wait just a short amount of time, it's likely there's going to be a different president, and that president will pick, and then we'll put that one in. Oh, by the way, that's not new. That's happened all throughout the history of the country. Okay? You say, no Supreme Court justice has ever been nominated and approved in the final year of a presidency. Bullshit! That's happened tons of times. Okay? Has it ever happened this close to an election? No, but that just happens to be the luck of when she died. Okay? She died close to an election. This was a big enough thing. It was even publicly known she was trying to live long enough for this not to happen. But it happened. He has the right to do it. Okay? If the Democrats were the ones in charge right now, if the Democrats had a president and the Democrats held the Senate, they would be doing the same thing. Why? Because it's the smart thing to do. Of course they would have done it. It's idiotic to say that they would do otherwise. It might be politically expedient to say that they would do otherwise, but they wouldn't. If there was a Democrat president right now and it was going on, guess what? We'd see the same thing we did last time. The Democrat would put up somebody and the Republican Senate would say, no, we're not taking this up until there's a new president. Okay, that's how it works. That's how it's always worked, because the president can't make the Senate do anything. Okay, the Senate can't make the president do anything. That's how it's supposed to be. So what's going on right now? What's going on right now is the Democrats are threatening to blow the whole system up, and that is they're saying this is going to change the court. It's going to change the court from a liberal court to a conservative court. That's right, it is. Let's be plain and simple about it. It's not going to be as conservative as I would like it to be because the Supreme Court Justice Roberts has not been so as on our side as we expected him to be. But it is going to change it, okay? Deal with it. Do you know how long it's been a liberal court? Well, it's never changed in my lifetime, and compared to most of you, I'm old. Okay? I've put up with a liberal court my whole fricking life. These things have a cycle. But what the Democrats are saying right now is we're not going to let you have a conservative court. As soon as we get a president in, if we have the Senate, we're going to do what we call court packing. Okay? It's funny because a few people have tried to claim that that's what the president's doing. That's absurd. Court packing has a known definition, and that is they're just going to add more justices till they get what they want. Okay, if the Democrats decide to shove through and add 2 more Democrat or liberal justices, because they're not Democrats or Republicans, they're judges, so they don't have any of those distinctions. They're liberal or conservative justices. So they push through a liberal justice, 2 of them. So that would shift the court back to them. What happens the next time there's a Republican? He'd pack it back. This is absurd. Once you break this barrier, it becomes unending. Now, some people are going to say the Supreme Court justice number has not been the same the whole time, all of that. Okay, it's been this amount for a long time. And there's been one other time in modern history where there was an attempt to pack the Supreme Court. And that was during the Great Depression. And that was because to get the New Deal to go through, it was thought that packing the court so that the court would give exactly what was wanted, the Democrats were going to expand the court and jam it through. The interesting thing is the Democrat Senate refused to do it. That's an amazing thing. Why? Because I got to give it to the Democrats at that time, because they actually understood that's bad for the country. That would have been destructive to the country. It would have destroyed the court system as we know it. The entire justice department, the entire justice system has no meaning anymore because it becomes entirely political, and all we do is grow it into whatever we want, whenever we want, and it literally becomes the next House or Senate or whatever. It becomes political like everything else. Will they do it? I don't know. We have a very different group of people who are serving in Washington, D.C. today than we had even during the Great Depression. I don't trust them at all. Some of the things that are said, it's mind-boggling to me. Some of the things that are said, some of the dishonesty, some of the outright lies senators and representatives are willing to say to try to get their way or to get their politics to win. So will they try it? I don't know. I'd like to think that sanity will win out. And I'm really heartened by the fact that in most polls, Americans by a significant enough margin, by 56 to 30 something percent in that range, don't support it. Because I think most honest people look at that and say that's a terrible idea. They look at it and go, that's losing the game and then changing the rules afterwards so you get to win. That's not how the system is supposed to be played. And I think most people understand that. Do I think it'll happen? No. If I had to bet, I would say no. I would say they're going to threaten it. They might even put it out there. But it might be wishful thinking. I definitely don't want them to. So that's one of the other ones that's being threatened out there right now.